Hi everybody, and thanks for tuning in to Toys, the Universe, and Everything. This week we're looking at games you should be picking up for your Retron 77, and more specifically, games from the 81 Atari catalog, because those games are cheap, easy to find, and represent some of the best in Atari's catalog. Demons to Diamonds is our first paddle game on this list. I know a lot of people like this game, but the Retron 77's jittery paddle issues and the irritating sound and overly abstract graphics make this a pass for me. It just doesn't have that universal appeal to get your friends to play it with you, and the jittery paddles really make it a chore to play. Until there's a patch, it's a no-go. Video Pinball, however, is a fun early attempt at pinball. You'll have to read the directions somehow if you get just a loose cart. I never knew as a kid you could bump the table and tilt the table. If you get it loose, head over to AtariAge.com and read up on how to play. It may not be a realistic or faithful reproduction of pinball, but it is fun, so it gets a thumbs up. Breakout is a classic. But on the Retron 77, the jittery paddle bug really hurts your ability to have fun. As the ball speeds up, it gets very hard to judge the corner of your bar, and the ball will whiz by, leaving you very angry. It is a must in an Atari collection, but if you're only playing on a Retron 77, you can take a pass until the system gets a patch that fixes the paddles. It's just almost unplayable, and will absolutely give you an epileptic fit. Another paddle game. I love Circus Atari, but even on a real Atari, you need clean, well-tuned paddles to be successful. This game is as unforgiving as it is addicting. I hate not giving this a thumbs up, I really do, but the jitters will ruin your game so often it will just be frustrating. This game is played on quarters of an inch and it jitters way too much to be reliable. Forget playing on a stick. You can do that, because it will be too slow to be any kind of improvement. Just pass on this one for now. Human Cannonball. This game is odd. I don't see why it exists really. I mean, it could be made today with so many neat ideas plugged into it. I think I should hate it, but I catch myself playing it for 5 or 10 minutes here or there. So I guess it isn't terrible, but don't make your friends watch you play it unless you want them to go home. This is the video game equivalent of playing Happy Trails on the stereo at the end of a party. Just pass. If you didn't play this back in the day, you might be surprised to know that Maze Craze is low-key one of the most fun things you can play on an Atari or your new Retron 77. Get to the end of the maze before your friend and avoid the squares, please. If you have friends, get this game. If you don't have friends, get this game and get some friends. It's cheap and it's a buy. Pac-Man, Pac-Man, Pac-Man. It doesn't look like arcade Pac-Man. It doesn't sound like arcade Pac-Man. And it doesn't play like arcade Pac-Man. It is still oddly fun. This Pac-Man is way better, but considering how cheap and easy to find Pac-Man is, it's an easy recommend. Even if you don't like it, you can still challenge your friends to figure out what color the ghosts really are. It's cheap, and it's a buy, even if it's not Pac-Man Pac-Man. Skydivers is another game based around a limited physics scenario. You drop out of a plane, and based on air current and speed, you try to land on your platform. The concept is very shallow, and if I could make it a compilation with other shallow titles like Human Cannonball, then I'd say go for it. I did have a little bit of fun trying to figure this one out, but this would be a deep cut at best. If you're entertaining friends, there are better games to play, and if you're by yourself, there is 0 point in playing it. Pass on this one unless you're just trying to have them all. Super Breakout suffers on the Retron 77 the same way Breakout does. If you have an Atari, then you should have Super Breakout. But if you are a Retron 77 only household, even with the extra play modes, you're going to be super frustrated trying to play this. Controllers are too slow, paddles are too jittery, and I could seriously see this giving someone an epileptic fit. I really hope Hyperkin considers fixing paddles a priority. I had heard they were considering making a new paddle for the system, so fingers crossed, but pass for now. Backgammon is fun. I think board games is somewhere the classic Atari lineup really shines, but jittery paddles make this unplayable on a Retron. You will constantly select the wrong spot, and it ruins the experience of this classic game. The second the paddles get patched, this is a buy. For now, pass. Finally, something that uses the paddles that I can still recommend. Casino is a 4-player game, and the jitters don't manifest on the screen. Be sure to buy a second set of paddles so you can play 4-player. Now, I don't recommend suggesting you replace card night by playing on the Atari, but if you have 4 couch potatoes and 2 pairs of paddles, this is a nice go-to on game night for a little bit of fun. It plays blackjack, stud poker, and even solitaire. It's cheap, and it's a buy. Now, here's a game that is better on the Atari than in real life. I love Othello, and playing on the Atari saves you from flipping tokens endlessly in real life. Beating the computer is fun, being a real person is better. Othello is one of my favorites on Atari and works just fine on the Retron 77. It can usually be found under $4, and for that, it is an easy recommendation. Buy it. 3D Tic-Tac-Toe is strange and a neat spin on an old concept. This is only worth playing if you have real people to play against. That said, this, Othello, and Casino would make a pretty nice get-together game night. Trying to get 4 X's or O's in a row horizontally, vertically, or 3-dimensionally takes thought and is tough as the person you're playing against. You don't see this one as often on shelves at game resellers, but it's still a cheap title, and I consider it a pillar of the Atari experience. Grab it for sure if you have friends to play with. Checkers is a little bit more iffy for me, just because I don't love checkers. If you do love checkers, then by all means get this one. But the interface can be a little clunky. Once again, your miles will vary based on if you have friends willing to play checkers with you. I don't play checkers with you. I'll pester you to play Othello instead. If you're playing alone, pass on this. If you have willing friends, then go ahead. If you're sure they really want to play checkers, that is. I like chess. I have no idea why this is 1 player. You can play the computer, but why is this 1 player? If you have friends like mine and chess in real life is a tough sell, then hey, you can play against the Atari/Retron 77 and fill that void in your life that your friends have created by not playing chess with you. I do enjoy the light show that the system creates as the computer thinks about what you just did. It does have multiple skill levels, but no way to play a friend. It's cheap, and if you like chess and have no friends, pick it up. Now here's why you bought a Retron 77. Berserk is a classic. It's a time capsule from a bygone era where you are a one-man army taking on endless hordes of evil robots led by Evil Otto. Run or fight, but you have to do something. There's a voice-enhanced update to Berserk called Berserk Voice Enhanced, available at AtariAge.com, but it doesn't currently run on the Retron 77. You can play the ROM of that version on the Retron 77 and many others if you update your system with one of the super cool community updates. That aside, buy Berserk. Shoot robots. They have it coming to them. Star Raider is a classic. It is a classic that can only really be experienced on real hardware since the special controller does not work on a Retron 77. It is a real shame, but for now it is a pass. It will boot up, but you will need that controller to work. Pass for now. If you do buy it, be sure it comes with the controller. You don't want to waste time and money ordering it separately. Asteroids is an easy recommend. Shoot rock and the occasional flying saucer. Survive as long as you can. Under $5 makes it a buy. Defender is a game that really holds up and does a good job interpreting the spirit of the arcade original. Shoot the aliens, catch the humans, or let them splat, you monster. Just don't waste your bombs. Defender 2 and Stargate are out there, but complicated controls makes Defender 1 my recommendation. It's a lot cheaper and easier to play. I should not have to tell anybody to buy Missile Command. But since this is a buyer's guide, I will tell you to buy Missile Command. It is one of the best video games ever made. It has aged better than almost any other game on this list. Defend your cities from nuclear Armageddon, blink early, but not often, or you will die, especially on later levels. This is a crowning achievement on the Atari, and you should be playing it on your Retron 77. It looks great in HD. Just buy it. Space Invaders hasn't aged as well as Missile Command, but 2-player co-op and 112 variations means this game still has legs if you have friends over. Invisible Invaders, odd missiles, moving shields. It has so many options that you need the chart handy, and be careful, you'd hate to hit select key one too many times and have to start hitting the select key all over again. Space War is okay. It really feels like it should have been a game variation in Combat or Asteroids. It really is combat in space. Yars Revenge is that cult classic that most of us played at one point or another. It seems like today it would be considered a boss rush game that is missing levels, but It's boss fights. It's fun. Eat the shield, build up a shot, fire it back at what I always thought was a fly swatter. Avoid the slow disc thingy that chases you. It's so weird. Just buy it. Adventure's probably seen a resurgence now thanks to Ready Player One. Hopefully the prices stay reasonable because this is a great time killer when it's just you playing. Get the keys, kill the dragons, get the chalice, take it home. You are the square, by the way. The dragons are the duck-looking things, and I'm pretty sure that is a sword, not a spear or arrow. Adventure is significant for being the game that boasts the first Easter egg. Buy it because it's a conversation piece. Buy it because it's fun. Either way, it belongs in your Retron 77 play stack. Haunted House. I never played this one as a kid. I think it is one of those not for everyone titles. I did finally learn how to play it. I'm not sure I'd recommend it before Adventure or Superman, but if you like those kind of games, it's another one to throw into the mix. Get all of the pieces of a golden urn while avoiding bats and ghosts and get out of the haunted house. All you have at your disposal is a match. Another very abstract game, but I would consider it a lower end buy. If you want to know more about Superman, check out my full review. But I will say this game is one I have played so many times over the years. It's so quirky, but such a unique experience to what it was to play Atari back in the day. You're in no danger of losing, so the game is really catching the bad guys and rebuilding the Metropolis Bridge as fast as you can. It still seems such an odd choice to focus on Superman's X-ray vision and not use the fire button for heat vision or punching. But 2600 Superman gets very enthusiastic buy endorsement from me. Another cult classic from the era, Dodge 'em, is a unique spin on maze games of the era with a real pulse. I love how aggressive this game feels, and playing multiplayer games gives this game a real mean streak. Even more than combat, Dodge 'em feels like you are really stalking your opponent and makes it feel really personal when you smash their car and deny them the last few points on a screen. Buy it for single player, buy it for multiplayer, but buy it because it has aged better than almost every game on this list. Indy 500 breaks my heart. I'm not sure if we can be optimistic for a patch either, since it is the only game that uses the driving controllers. It really is one of the best multiplayer experiences on any system ever. Don't buy it for your Retron 77, but buy an original Atari, a CRT television, and driving controllers to play this. Pass on it for the Retron though. I really enjoyed Night Driver as a kid. As a kid, I had no friends in my neighborhood. It really has not held up as well as other games like Sprint Master and Pole Position. Those are better games that work on Retron 77. After about 20 seconds, you have seen everything this game has to offer. It does use the paddle, so that's another reason to give this one a pass. Okay, look how Slot Racers moves. The controls are weird, and you always feel like you should crane your head to feel how the car will turn. It does have an element of strategy, but it's so slow, and if you have Dodge 'em, then why would you play this? Remember what I just said about Slot Racers? Yep, just assume the exact same stuff applies to Street Racer. It is too simple and feels more like a concept than a complete game. I don't get it, I didn't enjoy it, I can't recommend it. If you just want another cart to fill your shelf, then go for it, but if you really want something to play, skip it. Oh yeah, it uses the paddles. On the Retron, that's a pass. It isn't realistic, its physics are very suspect, but I'll be darned if it isn't a fun game of basketball. You play against friend or computer one-on-one in a time basketball game that is amazingly still more fun than the dreadful one-on-one game for Atari 7800. This cart is simple fun and will have you trash-talking your butts on the couch. Probably still under $4. Pick it up. Bowling. Not awful, but if I'm going to play video bowling, I think I'm going to stick with one of the 16-bit games on Super Nintendo or Sega Genesis like Championship Bowling or even Wii Sports Bowling for a game night with friends and family. This game is just a little too basic and the physics don't really give me a bowling feel. It isn't terrible, just meh, so pass. Speaking of meh, football just doesn't have enough to it to really feel like football. They could have called it soccer, and I might not have known the difference. Retro game night football still belongs to Tecmo Bowl on NES. Golf, pass. Get it to show your friends what a train wreck looks like. I know people still love this game. I remember a friend of mine's dad playing this all the time, but back then there were no other options. I've played NES Golf since, and Mario Golf since, and Hot Shots Golf since, and I just can't go back to this even on Retro night. Pass. Home Run tries to play baseball, but there's just too much missing to be a complete baseball game. As an arcade game that tries to emulate a real sport, there are better options coming up on this list. It isn't arcadey enough to be fun or simmy enough to be baseball, so pass. Pele Soccer, or Championship Soccer, is arcadey enough to be fun. It really reminds me of 10-yard fight since you control 3 soccer players in formation. It isn't soccer beyond the name and the goalie, but it is limited fun. You'll likely get some thrill playing a real person as you both struggle to control the ball, which at times feels like patting your head and rubbing your tummy at the same time. Jittery paddles be darned, Video Olympics still gets a thumbs up. Even though it is just variations on Pong, it is still the best darned variations on Pong to be had, and Pong is still darn fun. This does include 4-player settings, so get an extra set of paddles. I know what I've said about Retron 77 jitters, but it is worth sticking it out for this game. Foosball, volleyball, soccer Pong, hockey Pong is all here, plus more. It has 50 variations total, so be sure to have a chart so you know which are 2- and 4-player games. I know jitters, but until it is fixed, even then, it's still worth it. Video Olympics has aged better than almost every other game in this catalog and has never been done better since. Top 5 for sure. It's cheap as it gets, and you should have it. Air-Sea Battle is so boring. It is basically the same concept as Seawolf, the classic arcade game, but not as cool as Seawolf. As a matter of fact, there is a Seawolf homebrew at AtariAge.com that is more fun than this. If you have an original Atari, you should pick that up. If you are in a Retron 77 only household, the ROM does work on the Retron 77, and you should still get it on cart to support the programmer. Either way, pass. Canyon Bomber. It has some variations that have depth, but you're not going to convince your friends it is more fun than Missile Command. Video Olympics, Dodge 'em, Berserk, or the next game you should be playing, Combat. The original king of multiplayer deathmatch, Combat has 27 variations of tanks and planes shooting curved ammo, invisible ammo, bouncing ammo, and little planes, big planes, invisible tanks, and all sorts of play maps. If you don't have friends, get some. Combat is multiplayer only, and it is a necessary part of the Atari experience. Another 2-player only game, Outlaw is fun in brief spurts. There is a single-player mode, but you're just shooting a tumbleweed, so I don't count it. It's a borderline buy, but not a linchpin of your game night get-togethers. That brings us to another paddle game that is worth dealing with jittery paddles for. Warlords. Get 4 paddles. Get friends. Make friends with people if you have to. It is one of the most addicting games ever on Atari, and even with jitters, it is still one of the must-play games on your Retron 77. Ah, the Learning Center games. Math Grand Prix. Do not waste your money on Math Grand Prix. There is no feeling of speed in this race, only sad, sad memories of parents assuring their children that Santa does exist, and he hates you, and brought you this. I'll save you some time. Basic programming doesn't work, special controller. Brain games. Doesn't work. Special controller on that one too. Some brain games sound very suggestive though in the description. Codebreaker, ditto, does not work, special controller. And a game of concentration, you guessed it, does not work, special controller. Hangman, however, does work. I actually like Hangman, I don't know why. It is kind of a nice, chill way to waste time. It is 2-player. There isn't a Wheel of Fortune game on Atari to play with your parents, so this is a close substitute. It is a cheap game, so I can at least give the final game in the catalog a recommendation. My only real gripe is having to get up to hit the reset button to get a new word on the screen. So that's it, guys and gals, my picture label pickups for your Retron 77 owners out there. Hopefully someday Hyperkin will fix the paddle issues, but there are still a lot of cheap Atari in its heyday games out there that will make retro game night a win without draining your bank account. If you thought this was helpful, please give me a like, subscribe, hit the notification bell, and let me know what games you think any Retron 77 owner should be playing. Thanks for tuning in, everybody, and until next time, it will still be this time, I think. Have a good night, everybody.